Next is Versus, which is a fighting game that is burned onto the same Blu-ray disc as Beyond the World. And it's not even something like a minigame or something that just wastes your time. It's a full-on fighting game.
Though sadly it only has a roster of 8 characters: Black Rose, Ovan, and 6 of the 7 main protagonists. Shugo is the only one of the 7 left out, as we already have 2 players ripping off Kite in this as it is, and half of this roster have Twin Blade abilities. I'd complain about there being so few of them, but again, it's on the same Blu-ray as a full-length theatrical feature, meaning there's more content and playability on this disc than there was in the entirety of fucking Digimon All-Star Rumble.
And it's not like it was meant to rival the likes of Mortal Kombat or Smash Brothers or the like that would necessitate a massive roster, and the absence of content is better justified as being taken up by the quality of the graphical design and the presence of a full-length movie and another OVA all being on the same disc, whereas All-Star Rumble looks like a mid-2000s PS2 game where you just plain ask yourself where the hell all of its content is. But hey, at least I can understand Adelie not appearing in this fighting game, as she's not one that would be in a fighting game with her more gentle nature.
I'm not as accepting of, though there is understanding about, her absence from Project Cross Zone 2. Yeah, I'm buying that when it comes out.
But still, no other characters, not even Baldur and Gondo? I mean, they're part of Sora's specials, so it's odd their character models are only used for that, especially since they look exactly like updated character models of Balmung and Orca. As honestly, Versus plays very well, all things considered. You've got good movesets reflective of the characters, and each of them are 100% unique to the characters, even though Sora and Sakuya are Kite doppelgangers.
Though Kite has the Triad attack again. I've gone over that incongruity twice now, that the only reason Azure Kite had that in Rebirth, in one battle, was to continue the narrative deception about the true identity of Tri-Edge. He really should not have that attack.
But considering it's executed this time like the move he used to attack Kubi at the end of the core games, I more or less will give it a buy this time. The game starts off with the obvious gameplay tutorial you have to go through via pictographs, unless you know Japanese. But as the first few opponents are ridiculously easy, they slide you into using the controls, with L1 permitting access to 6 different specials per character, 4 Rengeki moves, an overclock or rank up skill that improves your character's abilities for varying stages of time, and of course, 1 grand final finishing move.
In fact, you know what? It's an upgrade to GU's battle system, only with the RPG elements stripped out of it.
Which I feel shows they learned their lesson from Link, as all the specials are easily accessible, instead of having to go through hoops for them.
And once more shows just how greatly they nailed stuff with those entries.
Though Black Rose can get downright broken if you can time her counterattack window just right. I slay with her for some reason. Story mode is set up as if you're an actual player in a combat-based MMO, and you are playing as a small grouping of .hack's legacy characters, with all the protagonists and some of their supporting players getting involved. As you unlock new characters, you gain more progression tracks, so it makes you not rely on or get overly attached to one character, but learn each of them in rotation.
But considering the first one you unlock that is not the protagonist of Beyond the World is Sakuya, yeah, that annoyed me. And in turn, it takes a fair amount of time before you unlock the progression tracks for anyone that is not in some respect a Twin Blade.
There's a lot of capabilities for evasive tactics, and the battlegrounds do feel rather three-dimensional too, excellently designed recreations of areas from all across the series. Though sadly the character models have finally hit the uncanny valley that, though it's reflective of the design seen in the movie, just look unnerving to me sometimes. And, to my glee, Tokyo, renamed Q for some reason, likely a pun on his surname, is also involved.
He's using real digitized tech to enter the game himself, when it was established in his game that just has severely debilitating effects over time.
Which probably explains his more emo mannerisms in this appearance, the use of such destabilizing him mentally, as he never learned how to properly conduct himself as a hero. But it's to my glee, as he periodically appears as an enemy that hinders progression, so unlike the others, I just get to wail on him. And all the unlockable stuff is obtained by doing certain things in certain battles, so if you miss something, you just need to replay that one battle and not need to trek around aimlessly to find what you missed, or need to complete the game all over again just to get to it. though it is just BGMs, wallpapers, movies, and detail stuff for your digital profile, so it's nothing that significant.
But it's honestly the most fun I've had with a fighting game since I played the Subspace Emissary in Smash Bros. Brawl. As, remember, I'm someone that normally doesn't care for fighting games as I suck at them. It legitimately makes buying the Versus the World Blu-ray worth it, even if you still need to grab a fan sub of the movie to be able to fully understand what's going on there, as the Blu-ray has no English subtitles for anything.
But as it's chronologically set as one of the final events in the franchise, it's ultimately a good game, and makes it a record of 8 out of 9 of the games worth going through. Admittedly, 7 of them are just 2 stories separated over 4 and 3 discs respectively, but still.
Wait, right. Always forget about that one. So that'd be 10 games then, even though that's really just the core games turned into an actual MMO.
Though, if you're looking for story content there really is not any aside from the framing device for it, which reflects what would end up happening with Guilty Dragon, a game using the concepts, but none of the story that makes one invest in coming back again and again to it.
But hey, if they were to do another console RPG for .hack and reintegrated this fighting game's battle system with the previous party dynamics from GU, you'd have an awesome game if the story was just as great.
Which just leaves the Thanatos Report OVA that wraps things up about the other significant retcon of this era that I brought up in Link.
That everything has been a cultist's plot to create a virtual world that can supersede reality by storing everyone in it so as to stop the devastation of the planet in 1,000 years. Once again, if we are not technologically at the point we can colonize other planets by that point, we will have other concerns than the environment, such as population, famine, depletion of fossil fuels, and the development of tech that allow colonization would remedy a hell of a lot of environmental issues due to giving us alternatives to, say, power, pollution, destructive mining tactics, the ozone issues, by how efficient things would need to be, thus creating less waste and permitting environmental reclamation all on its own. That's not even getting into terraforming technology that fix all of those problems here.
Whereas, stuffing everyone in a game while their bodies wasted away wouldn't really solve the issue. It'd kill everybody, and in the interim, everyone that might be part in developing the proper technological advancements would instead be stuck in this not real world and likely turning their endeavors to escaping. Amongst a bunch of other issues that such events they keep inciting would cause the death of humanity, instead of their no-harm alternative.
See, this is why you never have your bad guys be environmental terrorists. Because almost every time it happens, it just straight up shows how ass-backward their thinking is by doing that. Well, okay, Poison Ivy, but she hears plants are in pain and depending on the writer, she's considered kind of insane. You can do this if you go the crazy route. They never did here.
Granted, the Thanatos Report is the last event, set in December of 2025, while Versus happens earlier that year, and Beyond the World in 2024. You need to complete Versus to unlock it on the disc, thus give closure to, well, everything. But in turn, as it's the last story addendum to the series to date, it feels like one massive retcon that removes the whole prior story theme of big business mismanaging advancements they do not understand, by turning all the past incidents of criminal negligence into actual terrorist attacks as part of an effort to validate both Link and Quantum's failings with respect to the greater franchise.
And I personally felt this detracted from it once again more than anything.
Carrying off from the end of the movie's events, David Steinberg returns to America with critical data from CC Corp systems that can incriminate the true perpetrator of all of these incidents, the eco-terrorism organization MAMA.
Yes, seriously, that is their name. You know, Beyond the World story was written by Kazunori Ito, the guy behind the main games. But this, in turn, feels more like the bad nonsense we were getting from Link and Quantum.
Mainly because it's directly following up on those instances to try and give them better meaning, shown with appearances by both Reiko Sayaki and Ryuji Sogabi, the latter better known as Flugel.
And as I was really summarizing Link's story down, I didn't address much about Flugel, as he really was not that bad a guy. Just hired to do a job the main protagonists were interfering with. No. The pie in all of that was an AI clone of her. Unless I missed a key line of dialogue and all of that, which said her PC was being controlled by the real her and playing support to the leads. Which is entirely possible with how much the patch I used left things untranslated. But either way, he's never actually met the real her.
Still, he's here because he's been aware of the recent incident, and is the one to supply the details about Mama to the audience. That they are a collection of women that believes the crackpot theories of the founder of the group, Dominique de Mirablau, that humanity is going to kill itself through its own progress, wrecking the planet. So it would be better for them to die before they can kill Mother Earth.
And this is why I think eco-terrorists make for terrible villains. The ecosystem and the environment are not the planet. Their condition is a concern for humanity, but only because we live here. If we wreck the planet's environment and ecosystem, we cannot survive on it. Whereas, unless we do something that actually breaks open the planet or causes it to explode, it's going to last until our sun turns into a red giant. Thus, it is hypocritical for them to kill all of humanity when what they are trying to prevent is humanity killing itself.
And yes, that had been shown to be what they were plotting, thinking the tests concerning the Twilight Dusk more than adequate for their needs, regardless of such an existence being terminal, as it will get every single human being off the planet so it can be purified of their taint.
Forgetting that Earth has survived, 2 or 3 extinction level events already, if not more, and the ecosystems just came back from that nonetheless?
Flugel's detail drop is significant, as not only is Emma Weiland, the original writer of the Epitaph of Twilight that incited this game, is on the list, but also the founders of CC Corp, Ultimate, and one of the previous heads of organizations that could have allowed their oversight. All of which have profited from the original Pluto's Kiss incident, which is thus implying, have they been behind all of this from the start?
Just saying, this invokes massive retcons to literally everything before it in the lore, and it's the last event in the franchise. A franchise that did not need this revelation.
I can't even really call it continuity cleanup either, as the details given in a way detract from all of this, as I said when I reviewed Link. Before this, there was a themology of technological advancement outpacing our understanding of its capabilities, and the businesses closest to such covering up their criminal negligence instead of seeking a solution to the problem. Now, it's all acts incited or exasperated by environmental terrorists that have been in charge of these organizations.
I mean, it gels with some things, which is why CC Corp so easily let themselves be blackmailed by Sakaki, even though they knew he would only make things worse. But it just weakens everything as a result because these people are morons, and I don't believe they have the kind of power behind them for such a conspiracy, especially with what's shown of them here.
Though before Flugel finishes, he does deliver one last thing to Reiko. A 13th Bansoya file he found buried in the CC Corp database when he worked for them 4 years ago.
And that might have been best to be delivered 4 years ago. Even though most of Link's events directly contradicted the lore provided by previous Bansoya files on the terminal disk.
Regardless, Mama is only after David for the data he carries, which they refer to as the origin.
It's Aura. Yeah. Apparently, Aura put herself in David's care, I presume so as to take her into protective custody of a sort to keep her away from these morons.
Even though that directly contradicts the post-credit scene of the movie this directly follows from. But yeah, Eleanor tips David off about them being after him, and the NIB itself being compromised, forcing David on the run, until Eleanor can track Mama to their headquarters, which David then infiltrates as a one-man army, in order to arrest Dominique herself, who is a frail old woman, telling that Aura will be their salvation from ecological devastation by forcing everyone to be digitized, and how they will control this world because they are responsible for creating her, and their child Aura must do what they say! That this was all she was built for! That was what she was designed for!
Aura was created by Harold Horwick as a tribute and testament to Emma Weiland, a woman he loved that he never got a chance to be with, born of the woman's unfinished work to give life and purpose to that creation, and dominion over a realm where there would be people she would interact with, where she could be happy. Aura was born out of love, to live her life how she chose, like any good parent would wish for their child. I defy this delusion.
And David does as well, for as Dominique demands Aura from him, he reveals an SD card. And destroys it.
That better not have had Aura on it.
予備のチップを壊してみせただけなんだがね。本物はこの中だ。
Oh, thank God! 'Cause that would have been a terrible way to end all of this.
Regardless, the shock sends Dominique into cardiac arrest, which kills her as all of her subordinates are dead. Except that is, for one. Eleanor, who shoots David, and then has some of her own subordinates restrain him. For she has been working to subvert the old heads of the organization for some time, so Mama could be reborn as an even more radical extremist terrorist movement.
And this is what happens when you raise someone entirely on hate, bad science, and personal delusions.
This in turn evokes more questions that are never answered, and kind of ruin a character from the movie. See, while I barely mentioned Eleanor, she was one of the key supporters in why this last incident was allowed to be resolved, by analyzing and directing information to David while he was out on the field, and was responsible for a fair chunk of number crunching.
Meaning she was part of the solution to a problem her own organization is retconned to have set in motion. She wins from their failure, and yet they only win because of her involvement.
It's a hell of a twist, but one that doesn't make any sense. The only justification I see as such being part of her own scheme to supersede control of the organization by making their plan fail so she can retire the top brass so she's in charge. Which, with Dominique dead, she is now. And she wants Aura from David, which he refuses to give, slinging a grenade in their faces and escaping, but with the entire left side of his body damaged from the incident. And this has been a massive flashback from David being cornered on Christmas Eve 2025, nearly a full year after the incident, which David having been on the run the entire time, with Aura to keep her from all of them, trapped on a rope bridge, with Eleanor demanding Aura from him. But what she thinks Aura is sealed in is, in fact, a flashbang, which allows David to shoot her dead, and then fall into the river below, extracting Aura's current prison from his cybernetic eye, and putting it in a prosthetic finger. She flings into the river with a tracking device so she can be retrieved safely by Tanaka, who, since he recovered from being a lost one, has been having prophetic dreams of the area he finds her in, so set out for some reason to find it himself, and upon picking up the device with Aura in it, the doubleware emblem appears in his eye, ending the OVA?
What the hell was that?
Yeah, this OVA is terrible. While Beyond the World provided main story resolution for the fate of Aura, since the entire franchise is ultimately about her and her life's effect on the game realm, this is just pointless. It adds nothing in the grand scheme aside from a massive, long-reaching retcon behind the actions and motivations for all of its significant events, but ruins appreciation for a good supporting character, and tries to tease the next stage in the development of the story that would never come. Cyberconnect even then knew nothing new was going to be produced for the series. They were doubling down on Naruto games and Ashura's Wrath at this point, so banking on an ending on a sequel bag that directly relates to a game everybody hated in an attempt to give it some greater meaning? Not only no, but hell no. This is yet another piece in the series you can pretty much disregard due to how it damages the other material in hindsight, as it's something that ultimately didn't matter to the greater story.
And it's really sad this series went out the way it did. especially with the movie preceding it being really good. But hey, at least it didn't end it on Link or Quantum. So, you're probably wondering why I did all of this. Was inspired to review all of this material over everything else I could have potentially talked about. Well, it goes back to my relationship with GU, and I'm taking off the reviewer jacket so you all know this is not parody, this is not exaggerating for the purposes of critique or comedy.
In 2012, I saw an article saying that the Dot Hack series was one of the worst things ever made by Bandai Entertainment, and, well, I didn't have a positive reaction to that. You'll forgive me if I don't link or screenshot the article. I've gone through 3 PCs and 200 videos since then, and I have long since lost the address.
But the reason I had such a vehement reaction to that was because, and this is literally the first time I have ever told anyone about this, not even kidding, playing .hack GU literally saved my life. I was suicidally depressed in 2008 after a series of just bad and worsening events and more or less just going through the motions and seeing if I've had a bad enough day to try and break a door of one of my buildings on my college campus to leap to my death. There was not much keeping me going. I was not in a good state mentally past managing to keep all of this in so it wouldn't impact anyone else, and classes and responsibilities and just a bunch of other stuff were really just getting to me, and I didn't have anyone I felt I could turn to, as I had pretty much lost contact from anyone I was acquainted with, and I can count the number of people that could have ever been considered close to me on one hand with spare fingers. But I had gotten GU as a Christmas gift the preceding year, after, of all things, a fanfic I had read interest me in buying them. But it had taken forever for me to get around to playing them, like most of my game library. And so Thanksgiving rolled around, a time of year and a holiday I hate, and I spent the week I had off, locked in my dorm room, deciding I'd have one last hurrah before going through with it, and played those games. And then I reached the climax of Reminisce.
And you can probably understand from that the nature of my empathy with Chigusa Kusaka, and why that is potentially the most emotionally powerful and moving scene in the series, which has been so criticized and derided. I tried, but none of it worked. I tried, but none of it mattered. Those were words I said to myself for so long, I had forgotten when I'd even started. Naseo snapping her out of it, and his speech to her spoke to me on a level nothing else had. In that moment, Ryo Masaki wasn't speaking to Chigusa Kusaka. Ryo Masaki was speaking to me.
And well, yeah, I still have bad days after that. I never felt like that was an option for me anymore. That taking my life would rid me of my problems. I started being more sociable with others. I got in my head. And, well, yeah, I still had bad days after that. I never felt like that was an option for me anymore. That taking my life would get rid of my problems. I started being more sociable with others. I got out of my head, which I realized was half of the problem. My own isolation was driving me to death. I'm still a very introverted person. I'm still very socially awkward around people, but I'm better now. And this series is the reason why that is. Because that experience got me over the worst year of my life, and helps me endure the one since, so I don't take well to what I view as negative depictions attracting from it, and those calling it crap, and that's why it's so sad for me Cyberconnect has no real interest in bringing .hack back for real.
Oh sure, Kite, Black Rose, and now Haseo have been in Project Cross Zone and its sequel, and Cyberconnect's done Guilty Dragon as a mobile game, with the new World game coming. But us internationally, we'll never likely see them, play them ourselves. And the older good entries, these 7 RPGs, are so obscure and hard to find that the prices have skyrocketed, and it's exceedingly unlikely for there to ever be an HD re-release or digital download versions ever made available.
It's why I have ROMs of the series saved. So when these copies stop working, and I know they will eventually, I will not lose what kept me going all those years ago. That is what .hack is to me. And that is what .hack is. .hack is about life. Life in a video game. Life as lived by their players as they go through their own stories, their own struggles, their own experiences. And also the life of an AI girl from conception through death and through life again. Embodied in the name Epitaph of Twilight that surrounds it all, as it is an epitaph to that life.
Not every entry was perfect, or fit that paradigm, or aligned with the intent of the entries it related to. But that was the consistent theme that ran through every single entry. Life does not stop, it keeps going. People come into existence, go through their life, and move on, each in turn changing and growing, and moving past their struggles either through fortitude or with the support of others they connect to, leaving the next potential protagonist to take focus and tell their own tales, for good and for bad. And thus, why an unfinished poem that inspired all that would come after is the greatest symbolic metaphor for the series in its entirety. And so, while the series has ultimately ended, this is why the memory of it will never fade away.
Because, if nothing else, I will remember. I will remember this introspective, complex, and at times silly little series that a friend had to keep me into long enough to enjoy and appreciate, that an off-chance story got me back into, and that a caustic little article got me to share with all of you. I will remember, because this series is one long segmented story that can change and impact a life. And it has mine. And you know what? It's been 4 years since I went back and saw it all again from the beginning, and I think that's what I'm going to do. So, for the final time, I am Shinta, and this has been the .hack Retrospective, a look back on the entirety of Cyberconnect's .hack franchise. And for now, it is finally complete. Thank you for watching, and good night.
You! I will end you!